Okay. Let's see if we're live.
Yes, we are.
Yes. Okay. I'm going to share this to my other pages.
Me too.
Guys, hopefully this works better. I can record it this way too. Just sharing the pages, waiting for people to jump on.
You've got people on, you know that, right?
Yeah, I know. I'm just sharing.
Yeah, I am too.
Hopefully this is going to work. So give me just a second, guys. Okay, I can kind of see the comments better, everybody says. So, all right, you ready to start? Miss Vanessa?
Yes. 2 seconds.
Yep.
2 seconds if you're ready.
Take your time.
I'm just sharing it in my on my other page here. Okay. All right, let's roll.
Right. So thanks for joining us, guys. Sorry about this is take 3. Hopefully this one will take. Jeremy says, sorry, I missed you this morning. I was out doing snow. Jeremy, I didn't do anything this morning. I was sleeping in. All right. So
all your energy for me. You have to reserve your energy for me.
I'm going to need it. All right. So this is a tough topic. I don't even know where to begin with this, Vanessa. So I had that was let's just talk about this week a little bit. Wednesday for me was very traumatic. I was watching the confirmation hearing or whatever it's called, where they certified results of the Electoral College. So I'm watching it live, and so I'm watching everything, the invasion of the Capitol building, and this went on for 3 hours.
Yeah.
And just watching it, wondering what's going to happen. But the thing that stood out to me, I even took a picture of it. I sent it. I think I sent it to Doug. I might have sent it to you too. But you have this mob of people pushing their way into the Capitol, where our entire government representatives, House of Representatives, Vice President Mike Pence, all in one building. The police force was completely outmatched and outmanned.
Yeah.
See these Jesus saves signs. And the incongruence there is scary. So I needed that break from Facebook. I needed a break. I was doing okay till I saw the MAGA people started blaming Antifa and Black Lives Matter right away.
Yes.
With no evidence, with no time for, not that I would have thought that anyway, but it was so transparently scapegoating a group of people that they've been scapegoating for this entire year. And it was just too much for me, with all of that. So I thought I'm just going to stay off Facebook for a while. And a few people reached out to me. Vanessa, you were one, gave me a call. Don't be gone too long. We need you on here.
I'm back.
Talk some sense into me. Derek Day called me and he encouraged me as well. But we got into this topic and it was so good, Vanessa. I remember telling you, I wish that we were recording this and doing this on a Facebook Live.
I know.
Excited to do it. But we have talked about in the past, the warring energies, right? Yahweh, the Old Testament God. Even in the Old Testament, but definitely historically, if you had historical evidence, even if you don't, Yahweh is a warring God. The entire Old Testament is about God choosing a race of people and then being on their side to commit genocide and atrocities and murders in order that they might conquest a land that was not theirs.
Yeah.
And and make them the head, not the tail. So, I mean, that's the whole story of the Old Testament. And you see the energies getting stirred up. At least I think you could very clearly see those same energies getting stirred up on Wednesday. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what we want to talk about tonight, right?
Yeah, we do. So
I have some scotch with me.
You got scotch and I just got water. So damn, you know. So like you, I was watching the certification process, which really should have been, from what I heard, a 20-minute, 30-minute procedure, just sort of a ritual, just, you know, and it should have been over with. And I think a lot of us, if we were honest, maybe we're on pins and needles a little bit. I think I was unconsciously, because I've seen some subliminal posts from people that I'm somehow connected to online. So I think a lot of us were unconsciously on pins and needles. So surprised, no. Shocked, yes. I think even more shocked when we started to see the magnitude of what really happened. Because initially I was thinking, okay, a few hundred people may have acted stupid. You know, that was my initial thought. And then the footage kept coming in, the pictures kept coming in, the graphics. And then when I heard them trying to shift the blame to not only Antifa, which I don't even know who the hell that is. I don't know if anybody knows who that is. But then when they tried to shift the blame to Black Lives Matter, me being a Black woman, I'm still dealing with that trauma from the summer. So that pissed me the hell off. Excuse my French, y'all. Just
well, it's appropriate.
And then when I began to see the Jesus saves signs. So now in my head, all of that energy is just twirling, because now not only are you saying that this is the left doing this, and I am a Democrat. I'm not hiding that. I don't know if I'll always be a Democrat, but I've been a lifelong Democrat. I have voted Republican once or twice though, because to me, whatever, that's not important. So when I heard that, yes, I started to take things really personally at that point, which I'm learning that we shouldn't do that, but I did. Then on top of that, Aaron, and I hope your viewers don't get offended. I just got to speak my truth. Everybody's truth is their own truth. If it doesn't resonate with you, it just doesn't resonate. But then I see thousands, tens of thousands of predominantly white Americans doing this. And watching them not only do it, but get away with doing it with very little casualty other than the 5 lives, unfortunately, that were lost. So I had a lot going on in my head that day. And I kind of decided within myself, I was not going to take this on. I talked to my friend about it. We both agreed, hey, listen, we're going to just try to stay neutral and not take this on. But that's not who I am. That ain't what I came for. So anybody who's listened to anything I've said at this point, y'all know that I have a love-hate relationship with Jesus. And if you judge me for that, that's okay. We live in a very judgmental world. But let me clarify that. I have a love-hate relationship with the Jesus that Christianity has created. Okay? And to narrow that down even further, I have a love-hate relationship. Well, I have a hate relationship with the Jesus that evangelical Christianity has created. There is no love-hate with that part. And so what I've noticed and what we talked about on the phone that day was, because in my mind, I'm trying to understand, as a person who was a Jesus girl, I was a Jesus freak, okay, y'all? Born and bred Jesus girl, been a Christian all my life, saved, sanctified, and Holy Ghost filled, Aaron, fire baptized, speaking in tongues. paper Bible saved. That's what we call it around the way. I'm trying to understand, and I have been trying to understand this for a very long time, even before my awakening. I'm trying to understand how the hell do people see Jesus in that violent portrayal? Because that's not the Jesus that I met. It's not the Jesus I met in my apartment 25 years ago when I got saved. It's not the Jesus that delivered me from drugs and alcohol and depression and suicide ideations. It's not the same Jesus that I personally had a relationship with, even if it was in my own mind. Okay. The Jesus that I had a relationship with wasn't violent, wasn't racist, wasn't prejudiced, wasn't hateful, at least the one that I knew. Now, we could argue about the one that's even in the Bible, but we can talk about that later. So I've been struggling for years trying to understand how we, all of us, could supposedly be talking about the same Jesus. And today I have concluded that we're not all talking about the same Jesus. Okay. There is a plethora, or there are a plethora of Jesuses. And when you take a child or an individual, and when you condition them fundamentally, whether it's politics or whether it's religion, but when a person is conditioned with fundamental beliefs about who they are, that shit gets in the psyche. And so for a lot of Christians, especially my fundamental Christian friends, of which I would probably say I was one too. I think Black fundamental Christianity and white fundamental Christianity may look different though. And I'm not trying to make this about race, but it's about race, y'all. Part of it's about race anyway, not all of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, of course.
But when you're a fundamental, there's this dogma, there is this belief that's very dogmatic, and it's very intolerant, and it's persuasive, and you start seeing your reality from the lens of that fundamentalism.
Right.
And it makes you very intolerant, and it makes you very angry. And you know how I feel about God and the brain. If if you've never read the book How God Changes Your Brain, I suggest everybody read it. I believe in God. I believe God is real, y'all. I do. But I also believe, based on neurological findings, that how you engage with God and how you interact and how you see God and how you perceive God, it affects how you act in the external world and how you engage with other people. So if you see yourself as, the majority, or if you see yourself as supreme, even if it's unconscious, but if you've been raised that way all your life, if you have an us versus them mentality, if you somehow feel that God loves your race or loves your denomination or loves your belief system better than another's, then that's going to create that type of reality within you. And I saw that this week. I saw people, thousands of them, led by, this is my personal opinion. This is not the opinion of Aaron Tomlinson's show, y'all. This is Vanessa, led by in my opinion, led by our presidential leader, who insidiously incited these riots, and has doing it not for the last 2 months.
Congressmen that were complicit with them, the Republicans that were complicit with them, preachers that were complicit with them. Yeah, I agree.
And this hasn't just since November, because people are trying to say this has just been since the elections. No, this has been for the entire 4 years of this administration. Okay, there has been a working up to this. Okay, this is not something that happened in 2 months. You can't take what happened Wednesday. That doesn't manifest in 2 months. There's been a gradual building up to this. All right, there's been these underground chat rooms, that's been going on. And I understand what happens inside the brain. People need to study the brain. I know it's not popular, but it ain't gonna make you shout, but we need to understand what happens. because the brain does not know how to determine reality from fantasy. It just doesn't. So it creates conjecture, and it creates its own theories, and it creates its own belief systems because it's trying to make sense of the world. And so all you got to do is use the right combination of words, right? And the brain starts to create these images. And that's what has happened. There's been all this fear that nobody has been able to. I just want somebody to tell me where the fear is coming from, because there's this, I keep hearing they're trying to take our freedoms. You know, what freedoms? What? Because the people who are saying that are the people who are actually taking their freedoms away. You did that to us Wednesday. So, but when you make a person think that their supposed freedoms are being threatened, when you incite the brain with all that fear, you're going to create all this chaos. And so I would love to get inside the heads of these people. And I wish I could see how they were raised. I wish I could have been privy to the conversations that they've had so that I could understand what they're thinking and where the fear is coming from. But this is what happens when you condition a person for fear and threat. This is what's going to happen. And for anybody, I don't care if you're a Democrat, I don't care if you're a Republican, if Joe Biden does this next month, I'm going to say the same thing I'm saying right now. You got to go. Because I keep hearing people say, and I'm all over the place, Aaron, stop me. But, you know, I keep hearing people talk about Mr. Trump's freedoms being stripped in terms of freedom of speech, but you're the president of the United States of America. Okay. And yes, we all are entitled to these supposed freedoms, but when you are the president and you want to be the most powerful person in the world, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't desire to hold the most powerful position in the freaking world and then think that you're not going to be, quote unquote, I don't even call it censoring, but you can't get on Twitter and talk crazy when you're the most powerful voice, the most powerful person in the world. You can't compare Donald Trump to me. You can't compare Donald Trump to Aaron Tomlinson. It's not the same. So if you want that level of power, then there is a responsibility that comes with that. Okay? I expect more from the president of the United States than I expect from his constituents. I just do. And I watched this man take hours to even speak out against the riots on Wednesday. It took him hours. And I suspect that somebody in his camp made him do it then. And even when he came out and spoke against his supposed condemning of the riots, he still made sure, before he even condemned the riots, he still made sure to repeat the very polarizing and triggering comments of, they stole the election from us, but I love y'all and thank you. Then he condemned it.
Well, yeah. So,
come on, Aaron, talk to me, because
so the freedom of speech thing is bullshit. I mean, people that are around saying their constitutional rights have been trampled on need to get a copy and maybe get a dictionary when they read it, because maybe the words are too big for them to understand. But the whole issue in the Constitution is to protect people from government oppression.
yes.
Speech is, the government shall make no laws. So if you look at Nazi Germany, you know, one of the ways that Hitler was able to take over Germany with the Nazis was he took over the press, he took over the radio, and then put propaganda and silenced those that were speaking out against him. So the freedom of speech is to put government power in check. So that having that power, they can't come and say, Vanessa, you can't say these things. You and I can't say these things that we're saying about President Donald Trump. That's treason. That's treachery. That's what freedom of speech is about. Same thing with the right to bear arms. You know, that's the other bullshit thing that people are saying. These people have been whipped up into a frenzy the last 4 years to be afraid of. On one hand, they got the president saying, you know, it's Sleepy Joe. He's got dementia. He's hiding in his basement. He can't draw a crowd. But on the other hand, you would think the way they react that he is Idi Amin or somebody, that he's going to exercise such great power and authority that he's going to, come, take away your guns. That's what they said about Obama. And that, again, the issue is not about your right to own a gun. It's about your right to bear arms.
Right.
So try and go buy a nuclear weapon. Try and go buy a tank. The idea was that, we're dealing with muskets and bayonets when they're writing the Constitution, and they didn't want the government to have that advantage in weaponry. I got to tell you guys something. The government already has that advantage in weaponry. So we need to change the conversation. But regardless, they're not coming to take your freedoms and all that stuff. But they were whipped up into that fear, partly, I think. But it's absolute insanity. It's
such insanity. And I think part of my message is, and it'll probably get me in trouble, but we do have to look at the correlation between Christianity and violence. I mean, I could just say religion and violence, but I tend to say Christianity because that's the religion that I'm connected to. But we have to have this conversation because we need to, and you talked about Yahweh earlier, and I think most Christians, not the progressive or enlightened ones, but I think most of the fundamental Christians absolutely see Yahweh and Jesus as the same entity. Mm-hmm. Okay, so most fundamental Christians and even just Christians in general, I mean, if you see Jesus and Yahweh as God and they're the same, and you have scripture in the Bible that doesn't even pretend to support violence, but blatantly supports violence.
Yeah.
And much of this violence coming either directly from God or at God's demand, then if you are a fundamental Christian believer, and most, I had the stats earlier, most fundamental Christians are Bible literalists. So you have to factor that in. Mm-hmm. And so if you see God as a person, and most people do, they just do, because most people think that Jesus is God. Right. So if you think Jesus is God, and you think Yahweh is Jesus, and you think that there's this real person that you have this relationship with, who in the Bible did horrible things whenever people didn't obey, or when people, were not in alignment with the will of God, then obviously, if you are a son of God and you're saved, and the other people are not saved, and the other people are not cooperating with God, of course you're going to think that you have a right to execute violence, because your Father God is doing that. And I don't know how we are aware, but somebody needs to have this conversation. Christianity needs to be revised and revisioned, because where do we get religion from? Well, thousands of years ago, before we got as civilized as we are today, we didn't have systems or institutions of law or law enforcement. We didn't have police officers, which that's a whole nother conversation. But anyway, we didn't have law enforcement. So people had to try to find a way to control people and control groups and make them coherent. So they instituted these law and punishment systems, and religion was birthed out of that movement. Okay, so a lot of the ways that we see God in the Bible comes from people trying to find a way to get people to become a coherent collective community. So if you do what we say, we'll reward you. God will reward you. And if you don't do what we say, God will punish you. Well, Aaron, I'm sorry. It's 2021. And it's time for religion to become more advanced. It's time for religion to upgrade and stop acting as if we're still in the freaking cave ages. Okay. It's time for us to stop acting like we're still in the dark ages. We have evolved and we're still treating the Bible and we're still treating Christian beliefs like we're still cave people. Okay. We are a technologically advanced society, but yet religion is still trailing behind by thousands of years.
Oh, yeah.
Intellectually. Somebody needs to say, guys, we've understood God improperly. Okay, we're taking on these antiquated thought forms, these antiquated belief systems. We're using the model from people who did the best they could and with the brain activity that they had, the brain functioning they had, because back in the day, the brain wasn't even fully evolved. So all we had was the reptilian brain anyway, which made people very fearful and frightful and not able to think and process at a higher level. We don't have that problem today. So why are we still trying to have this antiquated cave-like relationship with God, this fearful, I'm gonna get you kind of relationship with God? Like it doesn't work that way. And I'm asking for anybody who is anybody of authority in the world of religion it's time to speak out now. This is why, stop me because I'm all over the place, Aaron, you got to stop me.
Yeah, well, I want to interject at some point, but I don't want to cut you off. So
this is why all the prophets, now we're starting to actually see, which I'm kind of happy about because I don't remember really seeing it to that degree. Now these high profile prophets, I call them, some of them are having to apologize because they were so dogmatic in their prophecies regarding Donald Trump. Okay. And let's ask ourselves why. 2 reasons. 1, because they are still trying to prophesy using the antiquated, I'm going to get you God model from the Bible. And 2, they're projecting their own conditioning onto their version of God. So they're trying to force a prophecy because what they're really saying is, this is how I was raised, or this is how I believe, this is how I was taught. So I've got to make it be like this. So I'm going to say God said it. Well, if you know anything about the brain, whatever you want to see or believe, your brain will make that your reality. So I don't care if you dreamed that Donald Trump was going to be the president. Damn it, I dreamed I was a size 8. Clearly, I'm a size 14. So,
I want to add something to this when you're done. So, because this is part of the problem. So, somebody help me out that's good with critical thinking. I'm not sure the critical thinking error that people make here, but here's the problem. Education is a problem in our society, for sure, because there is a conflict. I don't want to say this. People do not understand the Constitution or what the Declaration of Independence was about, or any of that, because their ideologies contradict the very foundations of those documents and why those documents were written. And yet they think they're making America great again. And the prophets prophesying Donald Trump as president, or any president, but since we've seen it on steroids with Donald Trump, I'm gonna take the opportunity here, because one of the things that the framers of the Constitution, the revolution, one of the things the revolution was about is about breaking away from tyranny. And a big portion of what was in the thinking of the framers when they were putting the Constitution in place was to get away from what's called the divine right of kings. Right of kings. So I'm gonna read the definition of that. I looked it up here. It says it's the doctrine that kings derive their authority from God and not from their subjects. I want people to hear it again. It's the doctrine or the teaching that kings, those in authority and power, derive their authority from God and not from their subjects, from which it follows that rebellion is the worst of political crimes. So you can see that's the foundation of democracy. They were breaking away from Europe. They were breaking away from England, that operated under the auspice of the divine right of kings. And they had a vision for a different kind of authority, not a top-down authority, not an authority that came from God, who picked a person to represent him in order to put his laws into place in the earth. They were saying the whole foundation of democracy, and see, this is why democracy is under attack, because you're seeing these ancient concepts, these ancient principalities, if you will, are rising up again, because the whole idea of democracy is that authority would be derived from the subjects, meaning the people that are being ruled. So the whole statement of a government of the people, by the people, and for the people is a direct contradiction deliberately written in the Constitution to counteract the ideology of the divine right of kings. Is this making sense? Have prophets coming back and saying, and they are rising up. The entire evangelical church, the entire charismatic church that I saw on the white side of it. I don't know what was going on in the African American.
There were some over there too.
Versions of it, but they are rising up with this idea of the divine right of kings, and they made Trump king. Make no mistake about it. They made Donald Trump their king. They said he is God's man because he supports Israel and he supports pro-life. And yet Donald Trump is on record in the 90s. Somebody asked him if he had thought about running for president. And he said, if I ever ran for president, I would run as a Republican because they are the dumbest party and they would be the easiest to fool and manipulate.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so they put this divine right. Watch how this plays out in consciousness and in the spiritual realm and in the natural realm. So they're asserting this divine right of kings. Well, democracy is based on the right of the people.
Right.
So God never puts anybody in power in the United States. And if he does, then democracy is not working because it is government of the people, by the people, for the people. And so it is no wonder then that Donald Trump and these crazies, I'm sorry, you completely detached from reality, who are attacking the election as though it was not free and fair and saying Donald Trump won in a landslide when he had the opportunity. I had a Trumper that I love this person with all my heart. I still believe this person loves me, but they posted on my wife's post and said, no court would hear the evidence. None of the courts would hear the evidence of the election being stolen. That's just flat not true. Before a case can proceed, you have to have an evidentiary hearing. 60 times they had at least the evidentiary hearings, and judges on both sides, conservatives, Democrats, Republicans, said you don't have the evidence, you don't have the proof. So it was an assault on our democracy, and the root of it and the spirit of it is the divine right of kings, the very thing that democracy sought to get away from. And that spirit came from the prophets and it came from the church. So yes, I blame Donald Trump and his rhetoric, but what anointed him and what empowered him was the spirit and the anointing in the church. And that's why I say, while I credit the prophets for apologizing a little, because what the hell were they going to do? I mean, maybe their eyes are starting to be open, but they need to understand, and we need to understand, and their followers need to understand that they participated in a principality and power of darkness that the United States of America is completely contrary to. And they cannot have it both ways in their mind, where they think they are good Americans and good Christians, because the two are completely incompatible.
But they're not going to. They're not going to.
I'm not yelling at you or listeners, but we need to get this straight. We need to quit giving these guys a pass. They are connected to an energy that caused what happened on Wednesday. I blame Chris Valentin completely. I blame Sean Bolts. I blame Lance Wallnau especially. I blame Lauren Sanford. They're deluded and demonic. Okay.
It's okay, but it's true. But I think.
But it is true. It is true.
It's true. I mean, it is what it is. But I still think a lot of that. I have to go back to what these people believe about God.
Of course.
And how deeply indoctrinated these people are concerning their beliefs about God and the supremacy that comes with being a child of God.
Mhm.
Because these people have been conditioned to believe, you know, especially, I'm gonna get in trouble, but I mean, as conservative Christians, in my humble opinion, okay, this is just my humble opinion, but conservative Christians see themselves as favored by God. Conservative Christians do not believe that a Democrat is a Christian. They don't think it's possible
Right.
to be Democrat and Christian, and I'm
Right.
offended by that, because when I was a Christian, I was also a Democrat, and I loved God with all my heart. I loved Jesus with all my heart. I tried to live a pleasing life, and I would constantly feel the insults from the conservative Christians. So in their mind, in their world, and somebody help me, tell me how they got like this, because I want to know. But in their world, they are the favorite. They are the chosen of God. Reminds me of the freaking Bible. Just like in the Bible, God had his chosen people. And conservative Christians, to me, they've replaced they've replaced God's chosen in the Bible, and they've become that. And so when you think that you have some type of favor with God, when you think that you are the elect, that you are the chosen of God, you are going to become extremely abusive. Christians are abusive. Okay, fundamental on the conservative side, I've seen them, especially in the last several years, become abusive and controlling and deranged and delusional. It's not that I'm excited about that. It's hurtful to watch it.
Right.
Okay, it's hurtful to watch it to me.
Right.
But they were the dogma, the so, and I'm gonna get in trouble, but we need to ask ourselves,
Mhm.
why do we have a president that attracted and has attracted the kind of people that stormed the Capitol on Wednesday?
Mhm.
Okay, and we also need to ask ourselves, conservative Christians need to particularly ask themselves, what is it about your faith and what is it about your energy that you're putting out there, that the kind of folks that stormed the Capitol Wednesday support the same president that you support? Because I need to know, are these all the same people? Were those conservative Christians that stormed the Capitol on Wednesday? And if they were not, conservative Christians should ask themselves, why are you and those people attracted to the same leader? I need to understand that.
Yeah. I think,
Because up until about 18 months ago, I still considered myself a Christian.
yeah.
And in my Christianity, nothing about what happened Wednesday and nothing about what I see with these conservative Christians resonated with me as a Christian.
Agreed.
So
Which is
go ahead.
why they need to come out in droves and condemn it. If
Right,
they need to differentiate themselves.
right.
Arnold Schwarzenegger put out a video. I posted it on my timeline.
Saw that.
That was so powerful for me, because here's a Republican, and I know the diehard conservatives are going to say he's a rhino, Republican in name only, or whatever. But here was a Republican who came out with a strong, powerful, inspirational statement condemning what happened, rightfully comparing it to Nazi Germany, rightfully, because many of these people, the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, many of these groups that were involved, even QAnon is rooted in white supremacy and racism. And so Hitler's their hero. And he rightfully compared it to Nazism. And then he rightfully separated himself from it. And then he put out his support for Joe Biden, and then said some very powerful things to try to bring healing and some unity, if possible, to people affected by the events. I would like to see every single person, especially white evangelical, come out and do a live video or come out on their Facebook and do the exact same thing.
Me too.
challenge you to have the courage, if you're a Republican or you're a conservative and you did not support this shit show, to come out and do exactly the same thing, because otherwise you're leaving yourself open to the rest of us perhaps generalizing you with that by your silence.
Yeah. And silence looks like complicity. So, you know, and it does. And I understand that there are some people who don't feel comfortable speaking out. So, okay, I can respect that. But what I have seen with those that I'm connected to, those who are Donald Trump supporters, are still, with everything within their being, are still grasping at straws to try to defend what has happened when there is no, it's indefensible. There's no defense for what happened on this week. And I don't want to hear about Black Lives Matter protest over the summer, because if you're going to compare Black people who have been for 400 years, since the inception of this country, who have been products of systemic racism and bigotry and enslavement, to a man who is pissed because he didn't win the election, you're not going to compare those two to me. I personally take offense to that. Okay, you're not going to tell me that that it's the same. Okay, because we watched and we're still seeing videos that continue to come out, horrifying videos. Okay, there is no way any person of color could have rallied 30,000 people to go to the Capitol on Wednesday and leave there with only 5 deaths. That was not going to happen. Okay, so I'm looking for the white church in particular, and I'm also, because trust me, there are some Black evangelicals too who are just as fundamental that I've been checking out. But the church has got to step up if Christianity wants to redeem herself, because it's this is what's going to happen. There's two energies here. You either feed it and let it, and it's going to continue to spiral until it dies, or you can try to save it and salvage it, redeem it. And the way that you redeem it is by humbling yourself. This is what I don't understand about Christians, because Christianity supposedly supports this idea of humility, humility. Well, this is the time for Christians to be humble and to speak out and say, not only were we in error, but our doctrine is jacked all to hell. Okay. Not only were we wrong, but we brought a lot of our own self-righteousness to the table. Okay. Not only were we wrong, but we spoke out of our vain imagination. We lied on God, because that's what many of them did. I really don't, the apologies, okay, cool. But you just lied on God, period. You didn't hear God wrong, because God didn't say it in the first place. Okay. We live in a country where people go to the polls and freaking vote. And then we have the Electoral College who certifies the votes. So stop telling people that God put any person in office, because it's a psychotic set of beliefs there. Because if God's going to put people in office, why the hell are we going to vote?
Yeah,
it doesn't make any sense. And then that God only spoke to the 75 million people that voted for Donald Trump. The fuck is that all about? So the rest of those people are just damn it orphans.
It's supposed to be completely
Christians. Christians got to fix this shit. Period. They just got to fix it. Yeah. They got to fix it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, American ideas and this idea that God put somebody in office are completely diametrically opposed. Let's have some fun. Let's change the tone a little bit. let me read this quiz. I did this a couple of years ago. I did a message called "The Shadow Side of God."
The what?
Huh?
Called the what?
The Shadow Side of God.
Oh, okay.
So I'm gonna just a few questions here. So it'll take me a minute. How many men did Genghis Khan kill because someone decided to peek into his chest of treasures? A, none. He certainly wouldn't kill someone for merely examining his private things. B, 50,070. C, just the people who looked into the chest. Or D, 250, the people who looked in the chest and their immediate families. So you can take your pick. If you're watching and you want to play along, you can put your answers in the comments in the chat, or you don't have to. Second question, how many men did Stalin's henchmen kill one day because they failed to say someone supported Stalin? A, none. Stalin doesn't kill people for their mistakes. B, 200. Those who failed to say they supported Stalin, not their family members. C, 1,000. Those who failed to say they supported Stalin and their spouses. Or D, 3,000. Those who failed to say they supported Stalin and their brothers, companions, and neighbors. How many people did the KKK kill in a frenzy before someone pleased them by ending a mixed marriage with the murder of a couple? A, none. The KKK loves all their followers and imposes no such restriction on whom they marry. B, 100. C, 24,000. Or D, none of the above. Number 4, how many animals did the British Royal Guard kill in Africa in an attempt to please the Queen? A, none. The Queen is not so insensitive as to gain satisfaction from manslaughter of innocent animals. B, 2 head of cattle, 2 rams, and 2 ravens. C, a herd of 100 sheep that he and his men came across in their conquests. Or D, 120,000 sheep and 22,000 oxen. Next question. How many Jews did the SS deliver to Hitler's concentration camps to be slaughtered? A, trick question. The Jews were God's chosen people, hence Hitler would never have allowed anyone to slaughter them. B, 500,000. C, 5 million, the number who disobeyed his commands. Or D, 200, the number who worshiped other leaders. Number 6, there's 10 questions. How many people of Iraq were once killed or enslaved because they didn't give Saddam Hussein his due? A, 120,000 valiant men were killed and 200,000 women and children taken as slaves for cheap labor. B, 1, C, 2, D, none of the above. Number 7, how many Ethiopians did Idi Amin kill for his cleansing of chosen people? A, none. Idi Amin doesn't kill people. B, 1 million. C, 1,000. D, 100. Number 8, speaking of cleansing and conquering, how many kings were maimed in the name of Alexander the Great? A, none. B, 1 had his leg broken so he couldn't gather men to form an army. C, 2 had their tongues cut out so they couldn't call the people to war. Or D, 70 had their thumbs and big toes cut off. Number 9, how many soldiers did the U.S. Army burn to death with fire from tanks because they confronted the killer of 3 innocent priests? A, none. The U.S. Army would never engage in such a cruel act. B, 50. C, 100. D, 150. Last one. Number 10. If Osama bin Laden was still alive, how many dead would there be by the time he was done with his killing spree? A, none. Osama doesn't kill. B, 10 million. C, 100 million. Or D, enough to cover the entire surface of the earth. Now, the answer to all those questions is none. None of the above. None of these guys do these things, right? Right. So let's take this to the Bible. Let's take this to the Bible.
Uh-oh.
How many men did God kill because someone decided to peek into the ark of the Lord? The correct answer is B, 50,070. 1 Samuel 16. How many men did Moses kill in one day because they failed to say they supported God? Correct answer D, 3,000. Exodus 32, 26 through 28.
Uh-oh.
How many people did God kill in a plague before someone pleased him by ending a mixed marriage with the murder of the couple? Answer C, 24,000. Numbers 25, 6 through 9. How many animals did Solomon kill and sacrifice to please the Lord? The answer is D, 120,000 sheep and 22,000 oxen. How many Israelites did God deliver to the people of Judah to slaughter? Correct answer B, 500,000. 2 Chronicles 13, 15 through 18. Notwithstanding the above, how many people of Judah were once killed or enslaved because they didn't give God his due? The answer is A, 120,000 valiant men were killed, 200,000 women and children were taken as slaves, not to mention the theft of their property. And that is, I just lost my place, 2 Chronicles 28, 6 through 8. How many Ethiopians did God kill for his chosen people? Correct answer B, 1 million. 2 Chronicles 14, 8 through 12. Speaking of God's chosen people, how many kings were maimed in God's name? Correct answer D, 70 had their thumbs and big toes cut off. Judges 1, 5 through 7. Number 9, how many soldiers did God burn to death with fire from heaven because they confronted Elijah? The answer is D, 150. And then finally, number 10, by the time God gets through with his killing spree, how many dead will there be? Correct answer is D, enough to cover the face of the entire earth. Jeremiah 25, 33.
Woo. Now, what happens if you're a fundamentalist for most of all your life and you really believe that that's how you're supposed to respond? That shit is dangerous. That means that's dangerous. That means that we're outputting potentially some very dangerous people walking this earth.
Yeah.
If that's the book that's governing our relationship with God.
Well, yeah, because we condemn all those people. I love that analogy because we condemn Hitler, Genghis Khan, Alexander the Great, Idi Amin, the KKK, and yet none of them did those things. But
wow.
the Testament did all those things, and we defend him. The only thing that changed was who you put in there. So this also explains, if you get used to defending a God who is vile, then you can also be convinced to defend a leader who is vile and say the representative of God.
Absolutely.
The thinking can get. That's why these people, now I realize the people that stormed the Capitol do not represent the majority of Americans or even, a significant segment of people who voted for Donald Trump, but it does explain how we have footage of people going into the Capitol building with nooses, or no, there was one outside or something, but zip ties, looking for Vice President Mike Pence. Nobody's been more loyal to Trump than Mike Pence. Nobody has taken a back seat or supported him or defended him more than Mike Pence. And that quickly they turned on him, and they were looking for Mike Pence so that they could string him up and hang him as a traitor. And that's on camera.
And I want people to think about this, because Donald Trump has yet to defend or condemn, if nothing else, that act, those words against Mike Pence. I heard the mob chanting that they were looking for Mike Pence. I heard it with my own 2 ears. I have the video saved in my phone. And I cannot believe that with all of the tweets and with all of the posts, that Donald Trump has yet to call a press conference and condemn the threats against his own vice president. And people still, many of them, not everybody, but many of his followers still continue to support and defend Donald Trump. After watching him again and again, just in the last week, forget the fact that he fired most of his damn staff over the 4 years, but just in this last week, we've watched him turn on people. And many of his followers, it doesn't matter. When I heard them speaking out against Mike Pence, I said, surely even Donald Trump Even Donald Trump is going to show some class. Even Donald Trump is going to prove to Vanessa Brooks that he really does have a heart. He's getting ready to prove to me that it's possible for him to be convicted by the God that he says or that his followers say he serves. Damn it, he wouldn't even do that for me. I don't expect you to speak out against Black Lives Matter. I get it. I get it. You called us thugs, and I get it. Fine. Thank you for telling me how much you love and appreciate the insurrectionists on Wednesday. Cool. I got you. But you couldn't even defend your own vice president? I'm done. I had seen enough after that. And for people to still support and defend Mr. Trump, I don't even have words for that, Aaron. I'm not a Mike Pence fan, okay? You know, I'm not a Mike Pence fan necessarily, but I am a fan of humanity. And that man had to be swept off of his seat, out of his chair, and rushed down the freaking tunnel, probably terrified. His wife probably terrified, because these people literally breached their way through the Capitol. And you mean to tell me that the president of the United States isn't going to specifically mention his vice president's name? And you and conservatives want to talk to me about Jesus and God? You're gonna lose a lot of people, and you're gonna lose a lot of believers.
Yeah.
Because what you're saying to the American people is, this is the God that you all serve and believe in.
Yeah. So,
You see, somebody like me that's already, you know me, Aaron, I'm halfway agnostic. I don't know what the hell to believe some days. They're not helping me right now.
Yeah.
They're not helping me to trust Jesus right now. They're not helping me to trust in their God right now. They're making me very afraid and fearful of the God that they say they serve and believe in.
I want to talk to people that are still under the sway of that, because I think we both agree, Vanessa, and see very clearly that there are some really toxic images and ideas that get put into people's brains from the Bible about who God is, what God is like. There's the violent energies that are associated with Yahweh. And I know there are good people. I know there are people who've had tremendous spiritual experiences. I know there's people who, like you, like me, that our lives were a mess before we came to Christ.
Mm-hmm.
These encounters, and our life changed for the better, and we went all in, right? And we're good soldiers. We were faithful believers. We were doing this from a sincere place in our heart. And I've just got to believe there are people out there that are seeing this and they're scared, and their heart is not in what they're seeing. Their heart is not in what they're hearing, but they're seeing leaders do it. This is why I'm so hard on the prophets. This is why I'm not giving them a pass easily, because people trusted you.
Right.
You know, like I use this example. If I go and give to a financial advisor and they say, I've got a stock that's going to win. I mean, this is a can't lose stock. This is going to make you a ton of money. And I give, and you know, Aaron, give me $1,000 and I'll make you 100,000. I give you $1,000 and the stock tanks. You come back to me, you say, Aaron, I'm sorry. I got it wrong. I missed it. I got it wrong. I'm sorry you lost your $1,000. Well, that's totally different than somebody that comes to me and says, Aaron, I've got a no lose stock. This stock is going to make you wealthy beyond your imagination. Give me your life savings and I'll invest it for you. And then that tanks. Now we're talking about something different. So there's sides to this coin. There's the side of you missed it, you missed the stock pick, but there's the gravity of damage that has been done to people and in people's lives. And people are scared right now. And people trusted you, Chris Batten. People trusted you, Sean Bolts. People trusted you, Lauren Sanford.
Mhm.
Trusted you, Lance Wallnau, Mario Murillo, Dutch Sheets. They believed that you were hearing from God. But they didn't necessarily want to get involved in all of this. And now they're seeing something that they put their faith in for the last 4 years, that they went out and voted for because you told them that Donald Trump was God's man. And they had to watch that. And they had to endure that kind of a national trauma to their consciousness.
Mhm.
And all you can say is, I'm sorry, I missed it. I've never missed it before now, but I guess I missed it. I need to figure out why. I hadn't missed it before now. I can't think of a single time I had to come out and publicly repent of missing it, but I sure missed it on this one. You didn't just lose somebody's $1,000. There's no recognition of the damage that's been done to people's lives. So in my mind, that is not sincere or true repentance. I'm sorry.
I don't think so
Maybe
either.
a step towards that. So, but I want to speak to people who, you know, maybe you're in this place and you're scared and you're like, man, but I love Jesus and I know Jesus changed my life and I trusted this movement. And I got swept up in this movement, but my heart's not there with it. And I'm scared. I'm scared of coming out. I have questions. Anytime I ask those questions, they you know, I get answers, or I get pushed to the corner of the room, or I get ignored, or I get chastised in worst cases. You know, I know you didn't, and I'm talking to those people. I know you didn't get into this to be hooked up with this mess. And so I want to challenge the body of Christ, the leaders that are waking up. Maybe Chris Valentin is waking up. Maybe Lauren Sanford is waking up. Maybe Sean Boltz is waking up. But I want to challenge them, not that they'll ever hear this, but I want to challenge them, do the real soul searching, do the real work.
Mhm.
A bit deeper than, I guess I just didn't hear God.
Right.
And for the rest of you, I want to encourage you, there is life after religion. There is a process. You can hold on to the good of your past. You can hold on to the best of your faith. You can hold on to a belief in God. You can hold on to the spiritual experiences and the gifts that you've had. And you can find community. And yes, it's scary, but man, it's not like it was 10, 15, 20 years ago with Facebook and the internet. You know, people are waking up. I was a pastor for 20 years. Vanessa was a pastor for how many years?
14 years. 14.
You know, Bishop B. Jamal Broadnax, you know, I mean, he was a minister for how many years? And Eric Day, Kyle Butler, you know, we were all in that situation and position. And we all have the same testimony, you know, that you can come through this, that life can be better, that you're loved, you're valuable, and you don't have to give that stuff up. You can give up the garbage and the religious nonsense, but it takes some work. It takes some work.
It does.
It's not easy.
And I think for me, finding out.
Vanessa, do you have anything you want to say to those people? I just really feel those people in my heart right now.
Yeah, I do. Aaron, this was the most beautiful part for me, is because there is relationship with God after religion, y'all. And I think you were one of the first ones to help me to understand, because, you know, because of how we've been conditioned in our Western world, God is synonymous with Christianity. And so without Christianity, then there's no God, so to speak. And so then people feel like, because I didn't want to be an atheist. I did, because I had too many real life experiences and I know that they were real. So what I want to say to people is there is a higher source. There is God, whatever you want to call it. Even if you want to stay in a relationship with Jesus, I don't have a problem with that either. But I think I'm more into subjective experiences, personalized experiences. So you can still be very, very spiritual. And Aaron, one time we were going to do a show about this. Like, you don't have to lose your spirituality if you lose religion. You know, I've returned to prayer, because one time I wasn't praying because I didn't know who the hell to pray to. But when you reconnect with the all, when you reconnect with the divine, with the source of life, the creator, God, and you've realized that being that beingness is with you. It's a part of you. It permeates your being.
Mhm.
So you can return to all the things that are spiritual. You don't have to let that go. So I pray, you know, um, I have a lot of sacred time with God. You know, I'm still very spiritual. I prophesy. It just looks different now. It looks different, but I still believe in speaking forth the word into the lives of people. The word may not come from the Bible anymore. It just comes from within. So I just want people to know that you don't have to, because I know that it's scary to think, what do I do if I'm not a Christian per se? And then even if you want to continue to call yourself a Christian, do that too. You know, create a new version of Christianity as far as I'm concerned. But don't think that that's the only path, because that's what we were all taught, that there's this only path to God. There's only one path to God. And if you're not on that path, then you're never going to find God. And that's just not true. All right. You incarnated into this reality with God with you. There's nothing you have, there's no prayer that you have to say. There's no acts of service you have to do to please God or for God to approve of you or for God to favor you. The God that I'm talking about doesn't have favorites. So there's nothing you have to do to find God. You just have to sit with yourself for a minute and learn how to trust your own self. We weren't taught to do that, Aaron. As Christians,
We're
we were
taught
not
against
taught.
that.
Yeah, we were taught the opposite.
Don't trust yourself.
Don't trust yourself. Don't lean to your own understanding. Don't think too highly of yourself. You know, just don't. Just you need something. You need sky God to do that. You need to take on the nature of God. Well, you know what, Aaron? That's what starts most of the war, because we were big on spiritual warfare. At least I was.
Mm.
The faith that I was connected to, like,
Me too.
warfare comes from being born again. Because when you become born again, you're told that your old man has to die,
Yeah.
and you've got to take on the characteristics of God or slash Jesus. That is so unnatural, because what you're doing is you're repressing the very nature of who you incarnated here to be, and to try and force somebody else's nature on yourself. God, that's going to kill you. And that's not what God wants. If that was the case, God would not express itself through each one of us, because each one of us are expressions of the all. So if God wanted everybody just to be like one prototype, that's what God would have done. But when God created, and I don't know how God did all that. I gotta ask him when I get to the other side. But when God created these human beings who were also divine beings, God put cells within us, and membranes and atoms and molecules and our DNA. It's all different and it's all individual. So it's impossible to take a DNA, which we all have. We all have our own individual DNA. That's what makes us us. That's what gives us our identity. To take a person who has their own DNA and say, nope, you can't be yourself anymore. You got to memorize these scriptures. You got to memorize the nature of Jesus. You got to take on the characteristics of Yahweh. You got to become that. That's enough to drive a person insane.
Yeah.
So most Christians spend their life, Aaron, not even living, never really being. I wasn't spiritual most of the time. Most of the time, I was really just being very rigid, very religious, and very structured, and just so scared that I was going to displease God. I was trying to dot all the I's and cross all the T's. So you spend most of your life as a Christian trying to please. And if you guys think about it, most Christians, this is what we preached: repentance, repent, repent, repent. We hear it now. No disrespect to Franklin Graham, but I went to his page the other day. First thing he says, I'm sorry about the events that have happened, but I know it's happening because this is God's wrath, because God is displeased with us. This is what we have. This is what you deal with when you're a Christian. Every time anything happens, it's always God's wrath. It's always God is angry because of us. Because we've displeased God and we've hurt God so much that he has to pour out all this wrath. That is not what I've experienced when I left religion, Aaron. For 2 years, I've not experienced the wrath of God, nor has the devil taken my life over. I have experienced perfect peace that really does pass all understanding. I don't have any more warfare in my life. I was the warfare queen. I don't have to cast out devils and demons. I don't see devils and demons. I don't have a devil or demon consciousness anymore.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
I'm happy and I'm peaceful and I'm able to enjoy all that God has created, things that I didn't even notice before.
Right.
I never noticed the trees and the birds singing in the morning and how beautiful the sky was and how bright the sun shines in the morning and how beautiful the moon is at night and how I can hear God through the leaves in my yard. I never paid attention to any of that because I was so rigid and so busy trying to please God, and I didn't want to hurt God and upset God. I want your viewers and whoever's watching this live stream now or later to know that that's not what God wants from you.
Mm-hmm.
You get to get up every morning and you get to live your life as the being that you were created to be. Okay? And whoever you are right now, that is your perfect self. Do we continue to grow? Yes. And improve and evolve? Yes. But we get to choose that. God has given us our own sovereignty. God is not controlling us like that. There is no plan of God that you need to try to find. God has given us sovereignty over our own lives. Right? And if you could just trust that, and I know it's hard to trust yourself. We've been trained to trust everybody except for ourselves. You know, Aaron, I talk to my coaching clients about this. It's like most of them don't even know who they are. So this is why they come and they don't know their purpose. They're stuck. You know why they're stuck and don't know their purpose? Because they've been trained all their life that something's wrong with you. So we've been under a reward and punishment system all our life. And so we're desperately trying to avoid the punishment. So we keep trying to do things to please people because we want the rewards. And we're losing ourselves in that. We're losing our identity in that. All right. And the divine mind, the intelligent one, that's what I call God some days, doesn't need us to bow down and give ourselves away to him or her or it or she or them or whoever the hell it is. Right?
Yeah.
To me, when I think of God now, it's a presence of love and power, and it's not judging me. I don't have to go to bed at night, and if I don't pray before I go to sleep, I don't now. I just go to sleep. I'm not going to bed fearful and thinking, oh my God, what's going to happen to me? You know, I don't see God like that anymore. And I don't want anybody to see God like that. It causes mental trauma. I believe it with all my heart. It causes, and a lot of these people are actually triggered because of these traumas. They're triggered. They think that God's angry, so they got to be angry. They think that vengeance belongs to God and they're here to act on God's behalf. So they're triggered. And people need to be healed. And right now, we need to be healed in this country. And I said this when Joe Biden won the election. Y'all can judge me, but this is what I said, and this is what I mean. I don't really care what Joe Biden does for the next 4 years, as long as he can help us get healed. Right now, I don't care about policies. I could care less. I need a voice of reason to speak to this country right now. I think that's the most important thing for me anyway. Are you level-headed? Do you have a sound mind? Because I'm reading this book, The Four Agreements, and one of the things he talks about is the power of the spoken word. When you've been given a power, such as the office of the President of the United States of America, your words have a frequency that can kill or that can bring life.
Yeah.
And what I'm looking for Mr. Biden to do, it's a lot of pressure on him. Can you speak in a manner that can bring some kind of resolve? Because we're a broken people right now. We're broken and we're wounded.
Yeah.
And I refuse to believe we're going into civil war. I'm not accepting that.
I don't believe that either.
I don't believe it with anything. I don't believe it. I believe we're better than that.
Yeah.
We're not primitive people anymore. We're not walking around with the reptilian brain and we're just going to go to war because we don't trust anybody. We're looking over our shoulder and we're fighting and we're fearful. I don't believe it. I don't believe those people in Washington Wednesday represent the vast majority of the human collective. I do not believe it. I think this has happened to shift us to the next dimension of human
Yes.
evolution. That's what I
Yes.
believe. And in order
Yes.
in order to evolve, there's got to be a crumbling, and there's got to be that. And if we could just endure this crumbling, it doesn't feel good. My heart breaks some days. It hurts, but if we can endure it, I believe there's going to be a grand awakening. Or I really do. I think it's going to be a massive awakening. And if this is what has to happen for those people who died on Wednesday, I'm sorry. Maybe they incarnated here knowing that was their assignment. I don't know, right? But I just know that I don't subscribe to the God of war. All right. I don't believe that's what God is. I believe that's what people choose to do. God is love. And we can choose to learn how to walk in that love and acceptance and stop fighting each other and stop being afraid of each other, or we can continue on in this path. I think we're going to learn how to love each other, Aaron. That's what I think. We're going to learn how to accept our perceived differences. And we're going to stop judging each other. We're going to learn the power of just being conscious and understanding that, you know, if you vote for Donald Trump because you think he's a great president, then just do that. If you vote for Joe Biden because you think he's a great president, then just do that. And let's be okay with that. Let's just be okay with it. That's what we have to move to. Okay. If I want to meditate rather than pray, be okay with that. If you want to be a prophet and I want to be a oracle reader, let's be okay with that.
Right.
And let's stop trying to force other people to see God through our own personal lenses, because that's not going to work. That's going to cause more fighting. Let's understand that God is massive and God is an expression of all of us. And it takes all of us to make God. It does.
Yeah.
We're not going to know what God looks like without looking at each other.
Right.
You know, and I hope and pray one day we can take all these labels off, because labels to me cause division. All right. I think one of the worst things that happens when they call the Black race the minority race and call the white race the majority race, because those send messages to the human psyche. Right. Minority has a
Really good point.
strong tone to it.
Mm-hmm.
It says you're not good enough.
Yeah.
It says you're not as good as us.
Yeah.
I think it's when you say I'm Christian and I'm atheist, I think those words are dangerous, because we're saying there's something about you that I don't like. There's something about you that makes me better than or worse than or less than or more than. To me, it's very primitive. And I hope that my grandson, when he's an adult, I hope that we're in a better place by the time my grandson is an adult. By the time your children are adults, I hope and pray, because your children and my grandson, they don't want to put up with this garbage.
Yeah.
They don't want to live in a world like this. They think we're crazy.
Right.
They think we're nuts. So that was a long sermon.
It was a good sermon.
Consider the benediction done.
I think hopefully there was a lot of healing. Hopefully people hung in to the end, didn't get triggered by probably things that I said more so than you, Vanessa.
No, I probably triggered them too. Because but Aaron, we all, I talked about that this morning on my post, like we all are going to have to even be willing to take a look at our triggers.
Mm-hmm.
You see, you can't just get triggered and then run.
Mm-hmm.
In order for even the triggers to heal, you've got to acknowledge that you have them. You've got to ask yourself, why did what he say? When he said that to me, or when Aaron made that statement, or when Vanessa made that statement, why did that trigger me? See, what we want to do is when we get triggered, we want to say, oh, see, I don't like him. I don't like her. Let me get out of here. You're not going to heal like that. That's what's wrong with those people in Washington when they ran to the Capitol and blew up everything and tore up everything. They triggered. But we got to ask ourselves, why is that triggering me? And we got to stop blaming the other person for our triggers. Okay, I need to ask myself why, and then what can I do to heal that? So when you're triggered, you're either going to have to become emotionally intelligent, where you say, yes, that triggered me, but let me try to find a healthy way to handle my trigger. Or when you get triggered, you're going to become emotionally unintelligent, and you're going to get angry, or you're going to run, you're going to shut down, you're going to cut people off. We got to stop living like that. We're all triggered about something.
Yeah.
That's what traumas trigger people. So anyway.
Good discussion. Thank you for making time.
Love you, Aaron.
Hopefully it was helpful to somebody and encouraging to somebody. You want to look at the comments and see what we got out there?
I'm scared.
Huh?
I'm scared.
Oh, you're scared to look at the comments? Okay. I'll be brave for both of us.
Because I always say, when we do these shows, I always say, I'm going to just try to be so compassionate and so calm and so sweet. But then I start talking and I don't know what comes out.
No, I was yelling there at one point, but I don't see, I'm not of this persuasion that thinks we got to be Casper milquetoast all the time or serve you sweet either. I think there is a time, Ecclesiastes. Well,
Yes.
I would rather be authentically pissed off. And I think there are some things that are worthy. Like if you don't, like I have to question people that just want to be sweet and kind and vibrate at whatever level of Buddha they want. They think they're
all the 5D people.
Yeah, like where is your passion? What are you passionate about? And if you're not passionate about
Thank you.
And my anger is very much directed towards the oppression. I think if there's one thing I've learned about myself in this last year, it's been that I have a passion for the oppressed and oppression where I see it, whether it's coming out of the church or it's coming out of politics or it's coming out of financial systems. But I think if we don't speak up with passion, then
that's what I say. And I think there are those in the conscious awakened community who, and they have a right to their own truth. We all do. It's
right.
resonance, but there are those who feel like you can't be awakened or conscious and be sort of an activist or at least have an opinion. And I just don't agree. These people who just say, don't say anything and just, we're in 5D consciousness. But we live here in a 3D time space continuum. This is what we live. We live in Earth. We live on planet Earth for this life cycle anyway. And Earth just doesn't work like that.
No, it doesn't.
So I don't support this idea of being conscious or woke or awakened and just sitting around loving and lighting all day long. I don't think that's realistic at all.
Right.
I thank God for the Buddhas and the Zens. I mean, but that's not me. And I'm just learning how to just embrace my authentic self. And I've always been outspoken, and I've always been passionate, and I've always been bold, and I've always been brave. And every time I get into a room, I usually say stuff that other folks won't say, but that most of them are thinking. That's just who God made me to be. So if I offended anyone with anything I said, I will apologize and ask for forgiveness tonight. because that was not my intention to hurt or offend. But I do want to, at the same time, I got to honor myself too, and I have to speak my truth from my perspective. And I'm trying to do that without hurting or offending any particular person. So I think my statements tonight were generalized and not pointed at any one person other than Mr. Trump. That's the only name I called out because that's the president.
Yeah, well, I was calling out.
So much is given, the same is required.
I was calling out people.
You was calling out all kinds of people, Aaron.
I was calling out all kinds of people. And I don't apologize.
No, you shouldn't.
I can't, in good conscience. Even if people don't. Yeah, I do believe, and this last thing I'll say, and then I'll let you close if you have anything else, but I do believe that triggers and that offenses are opportunities. When you get offended, when you hear something, you have the opportunity to double down on what you heard or what you disagree with, or you have an opportunity to examine that, look at, well, what's being said here? Why am I getting triggered, like you said? Or there's just something about an offense that sometimes allows words to actually penetrate deeper, even though the immediate defense mechanism.
That's right.
So I offend deliberately and consciously and awake.
I think Jesus did that too. So.
And I just got to be honest, I am very deliberate in my statements, in my Facebook posts. And just not to say that I don't, sometimes overstep and need to look at that. Certainly I do. And I have friends that, love me enough to challenge me. Had some today challenge me and had a good conversation with somebody on an issue. But at the end of the day, even after weighing what that person was saying, I still felt that I needed to say what I needed to say. So.
And I think that's how it should be, and I'm learning as I grow and as I mature, because I found out that as a Christian, I wasn't very mature, because it's hard to be mature and open-minded when you're just programmed by a set of beliefs. But as I mature, I'm allowing people to speak their truth and not try to control the outcome or control how somebody else feels. So trying to have dialogue and conversation, even with those that I don't agree with, because I really do want to understand. Like in this case, I really would love to talk to some of these prophets and some of these conservatives. I really want to understand where they get their beliefs from. I'm struggling with many of those beliefs. I've studied them. I've tried to read their material. I just don't understand. They get hung up and see, to me, and I posted this one time and then I'm done. If you choose to be conservative, that's fine. But to me, the definition of the word conservative, to me, it prevents you from really ever awakening. Because conservative means I'm stuck on tradition. I don't want to change. I don't want to change how I see things, how I do things. I like tradition. I like doing things the old way. How can you ever evolve and grow like that? So by all intents and purposes, the whole word conservative to me is restrictive and limiting.
Mm-hmm.
But again, if that's what people choose to be, that's fine. So I think my last thoughts are, I think we're on our way higher. I think we're going to ascend. I really do. I rebuke all wars. I rebuke all wars. There'll be no wars. Okay. Mike Pence, not Mike Pence, Joe Biden will have a successful inauguration on the 20th.
Yes.
There'll be no more casualties of war. There'll be no more lost lives. All right. Nobody's going to harm Mike Pence and his family.
Yes.
All is going to be well. The Republican Party has a lot of work to do with their party. I do believe that.
Yeah.
But I'm also holding the Democratic Party to a high level of expectation as well, because I got one foot out the door with the Democratic Party. I really do. I'm really considering just becoming an independent. But in terms of loss of life and injury, there'll be none of that. Okay. We're going to speak life. over everybody, even our enemies. Okay. And so I just want everyone to go in peace, and we're going to get through these next 12 or 13 days. And we're going to just take it one day at a time. And let's unplug this week when we need to. Let's not overindulge in watching the images that come across social media.
Yes, yes.
I overindulged this weekend a little bit, so I'm going to pull back some this week from that. And yeah, all will be well. Thank you for the conversation, cool guy. Thank
You're
you
welcome.
for
Thanks for having it. That's a beautiful note to end on. Everybody, thank you for watching. I can't wait to go back and read some of the comments. Love you guys. And if you know someone that might benefit from this, even if they might get offended by it, please share it, because I do think there are people out there that are questioning, that are afraid, and that are awakening. And I think there was some really good stuff shared on here that can help them. So let's see if I can figure out how to stop streaming.
I know.
I'm going to stop the recording because I actually recorded that.
Oh, cool.
I'm going to stop streaming. So namaste, everybody. Thanks, man.
Namaste, y'all.